All my life I knew of God through my parents, but it really came to life when I was 17, probably through the hardest times. Had some troubles and I needed a road back. It's when I kind of saw, he's more than just words. I needed hope. I needed, something to reach out for, and he was kind of what I could grab. I grew up in a Christian household, born into basically two loving Christian parents that came from both Christian families on either side, with God being highly involved. I was always more of the shy kid. Kids when I was 17 maybe wouldn't believe that, but yeah, I always grew up the shy kid, kind of do what everybody said. I cried going to school till third grade. I was a little mama's boy. Was basically intimidated of sports, intimidated of everything. And I hit kind of this point, I would say, at like 14 years old, where 15 started to go down this path through school and through friends and finding my identity and my what I wanted to label myself as, not just the shy kid, but I started to find this confidence, I would say, in all the wrong things. At that age, I didn't think so. At that age, I thought, everything's just going right. Girls are starting to like me, maybe not the right ones sometimes, but friends, I'm starting to make people laugh. We're having a good time. Start to go to parties for a while, holding it off, And after a while, you start to kind of go down this road of, well, this isn't so bad. And this isn't so bad. And you start to tell yourself these little lies. And I find myself doing that more and more. And then all of a sudden they grow and grow and grow. And, then I started to go to parties, hang out with all the kids that I grew up with, basically. Started to kind of put a stiff arm out, and they weren't quite as cool anymore. My interests weren't their interests, and started to go down this path of, what's out there? I know this side. This is what I've been doing my whole life, but what can I find? What can keep me awake every day in the wrong ways? Out of our brilliant minds at 16, we can just run into people's garages, and they have alcohol sitting in their garage. We'll start taking that, and that's easy enough. We don't have to buy it. And all of a sudden, at that time, our diminished, principles, what we've come to, starts telling us, the little devil on our shoulder, basically saying, well, just go farther, keep going farther. And we would jump into cars. We started taking more and more, and it grew. And, it started out with alcohol and grew to, anything you could find, money, purses, all these things that I would never have imagined myself doing, and taking from people and just ripping right out of their lives without really thinking of the ramifications or even allowing myself to think what I was doing. We went back to the same neighborhood the fourth time in a row, and basically, we had somebody come out of their garage and park right behind us, and we knew kind of, this is our point, this is our aha moment. We're here. Not necessarily my aha moment, I'm heading back to God yet, but my aha moment, I'm in some trouble. Once I got caught, it was a long road from there. I was faced with up to 25 years in jail. That was the harsh sentence. And basically probation, I got a felony. I had a probation officer, and this was 2 weeks into me being 17 years old. First off, I was homeschooled right out of the gate. And at that time in my life, my friends were everything. Not that my family wasn't, but at that time you're kind of putting an arm to your family, and friends are you're jumping in fully. And you want to wake up and find out what they're doing, and, everything was removed. So I had no phone, no no internet, no friends. And at the time, I would say, I'm glad that I had a vision through the people around me to see past my current reality, because I know in that moment at 17, we're so short-minded that we can't see past. There was days I just wanted to die. Days that I wouldn't want to go on, that, the world is barreling down. How am I ever going to get, if we can't look past to tomorrow, how am I ever going to get past this moment in my life? How am I ever going to change my reputation? Through that whole year, it was kind of a mess. I'm up and down emotionally, just trying to kind of get my feet on the ground from this mess that I've created. My parents weren't sure whether to put me back in school, keep me out, send me to a new school. And come 12th grade, I don't even know if they necessarily know why they decided to, but, I was enrolled back in Rockford, which is where I had been going my whole life. And pretty much the first football game, my wife now tapped me on the shoulder, and, just basically asked for my phone number. And I mean, she's a go-getter, so she knew what she wanted. And basically we started off this relationship that kind of led, each other, and we could grow from there. And I would say that's the time where it started to be real to me that, this is bigger than this situation. My life doesn't have to revolve around this situation. We started, basically checking out churches together, kind of finding ourselves together, finding God together. And especially in that time, you're still being pulled by your friends, you're still being pulled by this, but to have somebody alongside of you that can set you straight when needed and remind you what is most important, and especially to have the parents in the background that I had, just such a strong and empowering thing in my life. So 5 years after that, through, God's help of leading me and basically walking me down, a clean path and staying away from it, I actually asked my probation officer, hey, what would you do to get this expunged? Looking for some advice. And his actual comment back was, it's a funny question. I've actually never been asked it before, and he'd been in, the system for 20 plus years. And he said, typically it's a 1 to 2 year, back entering into the system. So once we got to the bottom of it, after basically thousands of dollars and, coming up with all these paperwork, and they really make it tough to get out of, but with the help of my wife and family. And we basically went before the judge, and within a few minutes, he granted me, the expungement. And I would say from that point on, not that I was labeled, but from that point on, it was just this giant weight lifted off that I felt like, even sitting and talking in front of people and knowing who I am today, it would be hard with that record over my head. Well, if they look at it, what's their interpretation? It's not who I am, it's the mistakes I've made in the past. And I wish I could sit in front of every child at that age and just try to talk some sense, like, there's so much greater for you. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm not sure there's much that can be said, because I know my parents were saying all the right things at that age, many, many times. And you just sometimes have to find things out for yourself. There's always a chapter behind you and a chapter ahead of you, and you have a choice which chapter you're going to go to next.